we can start my presentation. So, standing at a crossroads usually indicates change in the direction. Usually a good change, leading to development, modernization.
Excuse me, I can't hear you.
Sorry, and you cannot see the slides. So, maybe we should call the gentleman once again. Now it works. Okay, so as I said, crossroads always equal some kind of change, right? Usually a good change. Nothing happens again. I can see the slides changing on the screen, but not here. Okay, seems to be working. Development. It's working again. New stimuli. Changes are needed. Changes equal life. Now, an average language teacher's career after 10 or 20 years of teaching usually entails teaching various purposes, various levels, in various contexts. This is my own recap, but I believe for many of you it would look very, very similar. Now, as we said, changes are good, but too many, even positive changes, can lead to chaos and stress. Hence, there is a need for an anchor enabling a language professional to manage the changes and adapt smoothly. There is a need for some stable element enabling us, language teachers, feel like experts regardless times and situations. How can we reach sustainability in our language teaching career and not let the changes rule us over is what I'd like to address in my presentation today. And I'll try to answer this question by discussing the 2 points you can see on the slides. I will talk about a survey I ran among Masaryk University students, and then I'll briefly describe some approaches which in my work have proved to be highly adaptable and also took off me some workload by reinforcing students' autonomy.
Excuse me, could you please speak up because we can't hear you at all?
I'm trying to speak very loudly. I'm not sure I can speak any louder. Maybe if you can move closer here to the first rows. Okay. So shall I repeat once again what I said, my last sentence? So I will just concentrate on my work at this university, and I will talk about a survey I ran among Masaryk University students, and then I'll describe some approaches which in my work have proved to be highly adaptable and also took off me some workload by reinforcing students' autonomy. Let's start with the first point. Last years have been prolific in promoting needs analysis as a successful tool in deciding about language methodologies and language content. And 3 years ago, when I was still part of the Faculty of Science Language Center team, we ran a survey among our alumni, whose results showed that what they thought made sense to concentrate on when teaching a foreign language at university were skills. The results of a survey run by my colleagues from the Faculty of Arts at the same time were alike. So I thought it would be interesting to see whether there is any correlation between these answers and what our students, those who have not graduated yet, think. And also I wanted to see whether there is any divergence between the answers of students from two different faculties. So I ran a small survey. Sorry. I ran a small survey among the students from two faculties I've been teaching at, the Faculty of Science and the Faculty of Arts. Around 400 students were addressed from both faculties, and they were bachelor's and master's students of B1 and B2 level courses of English according to CEFR. And I received 47 answers from the Faculty of Arts students and 84 answers from the Faculty of Science students. Now, in the survey, I'm not sure whether you can see what I'm talking about or not. So in the survey, the students were asked to decide about the areas that they think an expert language teacher should concentrate most when teaching a foreign language at university. And the points included teaching grammar, academic skills, soft skills, critical thinking development, also academic vocabulary in genres as opposed to discipline-specific vocabulary in genres or general English. Last but not least, it also asked about preferred ways of assessment. So where do you think the students of both faculties showed the same opinion? Any idea? No? Okay, so here come the results. So both groups perceive academic vocabulary in genres, academic skills and soft skills practice as important parts of the language development at university. Now, both groups similarly sit on the fence when asked about grammar and self-study. We have 50-something up to 60 and 40-something, 50-something% of answers. And both groups agree on disagreeing with being assessed by final test or examination. So these are the similarities. Now, what about the differences? Where do you think we can see the biggest contrast? Okay, so it looks like in assessment again. When you have a look at the last position, you will see that the Faculty of Science shows 40% drop compared to the Faculty of Arts when asked about assessment through regular homework tasks given throughout the semester, followed by a final exam or test. Now, the joint second place goes to general English and reflection diaries with 33% of difference. And then the third place is taken again by assessment, this time through regular homework tasks only. And then we have a different opinion on discipline-specific vocabulary in genres and critical thinking. Anyway, I'd like to point out that in both last cases, there were more than 50% of students who chose these options. So all in all, it looks like practicing skills is an acceptable form of developing one's language proficiency across disciplines. And actually, this is what coincides with my observations when teaching different groups of students. Preparing materials aiming at practicing skills have so far met with acceptance. Now, another way of maneuvering across disciplines and purposes, and another means of establishing a balance between LAP and LSP seems to be by reinforced autonomy. And the two things I would like to mention here are interdisciplinarity and student-generated content. We can use an interdisciplinary text not only to practice transferable skills, but also to show how functional language works. And it doesn't have to be a text that deals with two or more disciplines that our students study, but it's enough that it builds a bridge to a global issue or real-life problem that could be discussed from the perspectives of another discipline. Now, I'd like you to have a look at this text. Can you see the text? At the first glance, you will notice that it could be of interest to biology students, maybe sports students as well. I used it with my B1 biology students, and the lesson was called malnutrition. And then I stopped teaching biologists. But I thought it would be such a pity not to use this text again, because if you have a closer look at it, it has got so many examples of cause-effect language. These are the phrases highlighted yellow. And it has got so many examples of negative prefixes, the words highlighted green. And if you use it as a starting point, then you can move on to practicing modals, conditionals, other lexical phrases connected with cause-effect language, suffixes, infixes. You can move on to freer practice of panel discussion skill, argumentation skill. You can even move to project work. So I decided to do it with my B1 art students. I knew malnutrition would not be appealing to them, so I changed it into global challenges. And it turned out to be a successful lesson. They didn't have problem with vocabulary. The only problem they had was with pronunciation of word deficiency. Otherwise, it was a successful lesson, and I dare say it was a successful lesson because of all these activities that followed. We didn't do the project work, which was the last position, but I have some idea of what could be done in this respect in the future. These are the ideas my art students mentioned in our classes, and I think they would make perfect topics for broader projects in which they would collect some data, compare research, analyze statistics, and present their findings to the rest of the class. So they would develop their disciplinary knowledge, and they would learn how to talk about it in English, individually or in groups, while practicing certain groups in certain skills and structures as a group. I will give some more examples how you can balance LAP and LSP via project work or via presentation or some kind of written assignments in a minute. I'll give you some examples of what we did together with my students. But before that, I would like to point out that these kinds of activities where you let the students at least partly define the details of the tasks are great because they teach the students to become independent learners, and that's the main idea. That's what they have to do anyway, in the end. They are also very motivating because they are relevant to the students if they are to define the details of their own tasks. And last not least, they create opportunity to develop discipline-specific skills and vocabulary on individual basis. Applying for a job was almost half a semester-long project I did with my biology and physics master's students. And it led from finding a job offer up to a mock job interview. And the students searched through authentic sources to look for a position, and in the context of this position, then they prepared CVs, cover letters, up to the interview questions. And here you can see the results, some positions from the last project I did with them. And at first I was a bit afraid to let them do it for themselves because I thought authentic sources, maybe it should be somehow adapted. But in retrospect, I think that was the best thing I could do because I would have never chosen something like wetland delineator. Purely because I would have been afraid that they could have asked me what it was about and I wouldn't know how to explain to them. But the situation changes when you let them do it for themselves, even though their language proficiency is not as high as yours, because they have one more advantage. They have disciplinary knowledge. So even though they see the phrase describing the position for the first time, after they have read it in English, they can easily make a parallel with what it is in their own language because of the background knowledge they have. So while my students made sure that an interviewee had all the discipline-related skills and knowledge to be a wetland delineator or mask preparation engineer in the final stage of the project, I made sure we had covered the skills, grammar, and lexis you can see on the slide. And it wasn't that they knew better than me what the very position was about, but they also realized about other skills that were connected with the position, which were not included in the job description. So they knew, for example, what kind of programming languages what the person should know to apply for this kind of position, or whether it requires any contacts with corporate sphere. And they used this information throughout the whole project up to the very interview. So it was very enriching for me as well. So that's the project work. Now I would like to move on to the second example. These are academic presentations. academic presentation practice. So what, 1 minute, oh my God. So what I do with my students is that I put them in group, in a pair with someone studying something different. So they have to come up with a presentation on a topic that is interdisciplinary to both fields. And these are examples of some presentations my students did last year. So, for example, we have a lovely presentation on Sapir-Whorf hypothesis prepared by linguistics students and ethnology students and some others. And they developed, again, their disciplinary knowledge, but also, as a group, we practiced these skills, grammar and lexis. And in such a situation, when you make sure, when you establish it with your students, that that's in the focus of your attention, you don't have to worry about not knowing some specialized vocabulary. Yeah, that's their part of expertise. That's what they are responsible for, and this is what you are responsible for. So very quickly, I'll move to the last example, the written assignments. I've managed to attain some balance of LAP and LSP by written assignments when the topic is not clearly defined one, but rather a loosely put idea, as I said it. So again, you can see one of the tasks I gave my students last year. And what I insisted on was they're using process description markers, past grammar, and connectors. And the details of the topic were to be established by themselves. So here again, we can see two examples. The first one is written or was written by a psychology student. The second one was written by a history student. It's a bit different from the task because it's not development, but still the student described the process in the past. So actually he practiced the language that he was supposed to practice. And now I'll show you both texts again. I didn't mark past grammar for you. I think it's self-evident. But in blue, you can see process description markers. And they are pretty similar in both texts. But in red, you can see disciplinary language. And this one is totally different. And I will never be able to provide each and every single student in a class with this kind of vocabulary. So I think it makes more sense to provide an opportunity to develop this kind of vocabulary individually in the framework of together as a group practice some skills and structures. So very briefly, I moved to the end of my presentation. I hope that I've managed to convince you that practicing skills and functional language and giving the students some more freedom in defining the details of their tasks are right approaches, enabling us, language teachers, feel like right people in the right place, regardless the goals or situations in which our students will need to communicate in. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, Agnieszka, thank you very much. Now, I actually really appreciate the kind of insight that you shared with us. I'm not sure whether most of you have got experience in ESP, but Agnieszka has definitely outlined some of the struggles that we've got to face when designing courses for students, ESP students that cater for their various many needs. So are there questions, please?
I have a question. I was wondering when you thank you for some interesting ideas. I was wondering when you were talking about students preparing for presentation, maybe it's a really technical question.
Mm-hmm.
For example, being from different disciplines. I mean, did you kind of try to impose the topic on them, or did you encourage them to develop their own?
No. They develop their own topic, but of course they can consult it with me. If they have any problem, they can consult it with me. Usually it's a problem whether it is academic topic or not. Yeah, whether it is something that you can discuss as an academic topic presentation. I usually tell them, if this is something I remember from my secondary school, it's not a good topic. I want to learn about something, right? You have to tell me something that you know because you study it. Mm.
Can I ask you just like a technical, practical question? Mm-hmm. Do the students come from different areas or are they from one?
They are all art students, so they are psychology students, pedagogy students, aesthetic students, whatever, all together.
In one group?
In one group, yes. But even if you have you think homogeneous group of students like biologists or physicists, it's never like this because within biologists you have geneticists, botanists, whatever. So you can have 5 other disciplines and you can make it interdisciplinary, usually.
And I just forgot to say thank you. It was really interesting.
Thank you.
I wanted to begin with that.
Well, we had some technical problems, probably would have been a bit better.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation, and my question is about how you, because unfortunately, fortunately, I don't know if it's positive or negative, we have to assist students at the end of the semester.
Mhm.
So what are the components or the criteria for assessing the students' work? Because it's on one side, language classroom, on the other
Yes.
hand, there is also content-based classroom. So how to assess the students?
We have criteria on presentation. So there are certain criteria they have to fulfill when presenting, and these criteria are known to them. So I always assess them according to these criteria, and they are not covering the discipline-specific language. They cover presentation techniques, the topic, like whether it's interesting and relevant to students, whether it was covered in a way that the title promised, right? So it's rather about academic skills, presenting skills, and general English, academic English, not discipline-related English. If it is about discipline-related English, it needs to be provided in a way that is clear to the audience. What I say is, I don't want your presentation to be easy. I want it to be talking about difficult things in an easy way.
So that's why I'm asking, so that you don't assess only the language and grammar or pronunciation, but there is just one part of the assessment, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I also appreciate your implications how to solve these difficulties when teaching different group of students. But earlier on your presentation, you mentioned differences in student approaches to assessment and their preferences. Could you please elaborate more on this question of assessment and student preferences?
Well, of course, there are some pitfalls. This is what we do, this interdisciplinary presentation is what we do in the class. But in the exam, they do it individually. So this is some kind of practice for them, but I don't want them to repeat exactly the same in the exam. So in the class, it happens that they say, well, I'm working with someone who doesn't want to work with me, or they don't take it very responsibly, or we cannot agree on the topic, whatever. This happens. As in life, you know, 2 people cooperate together and the other 2 people do not, right? This is why in the exam we do it individually. So these problems actually disappear then. Yeah.
And what is the actually proportion of these coursework assessments and test or exam assessments, if you have any?
Okay, so far we had presentation as one part of the examination, and we had also written parts. It's a bit complicated. So we had presentation and test, right? And then we had written component of an abstract plus an essay within a test, right? So it wasn't just a presentation. Now we want to move into different kind of examination. We'll see what it will be like, but presentation definitely will be part of it.
Yes, sir. I have a question. First, thank you for your presentation. I have a very practical question. When presentation seems to be an important part of not only assessment but also developing the skills, do you do any kind of theoretical introduction how to give
Yes.
and make presentations?
Yes.
And also some.
Yes, actually throughout the semester we have classes that focus on specific points. For example, we have one lesson talking generally about presenting skills, then we have some lesson on commenting on data in graphs or in tables, then we have a lesson on describing other images you can use in the presentation. So yes, so there are those elements throughout the semester that are discussed in individual lessons.
So what is the proportion roughly between the introductory part, I mean, to the practice, and then real presentations? I have the first. Yes. I have the first or the second class on presenting skills,
And then we have the first 10 minutes of each class devoted to a presentation. Sometimes the students go over the time limit, so I use the timer. And they really work with it very well. Now they keep the time very well themselves, right? They know it, that after 8 minutes it will start ringing, and that's it. The time is over. So they learned to work with that, and then we follow with the rest of the class. So first presentations, of course, you know, those students do not have that much input, but the same way my feedback is not, well, I don't want to say critical. I don't want to be critical towards my students. I want to help them. But I react like, and you know what we could see, actually we'll talk about it later, but you can help yourself by.
At the end, do you encourage them to discuss it? Because they're coming from the same field, so they might comment, the others may comment.
I haven't done it so far in the class, because then I wouldn't manage to proceed with what I would like to do. But now when we had this coronavirus time, I asked the students to film their presentations. And then the other students did the peer feedback. So I thought maybe this time I could do this kind of discussion via the peer feedback, and then there would be some questions to the presenter, which the presenters would answer to those people who are interested in it. Because, as you say, this this discussion afterwards is an important part of the whole process, because this is what happens in real life. So,
and also it solves the problem of this technical approach, so that you don't have to be the expert. But
exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. We've got to be as disciplined about our time as our students. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you around. Thank you very much. Thank you, Agnieszka. Thank you.